wrong place. My name is Cully, Bryant. I work as a family doctor in Sikeston, Missouri, but I write stories and poetry for fun, and it makes it a lot more fun when people like them. Thank you. Sometimes when I'm around literary folks, I like to reveal the fact that my actual full name is William Cullen Bryant IV, and then I just let that hang there, and I don't say anything else. The title of my story is Where Did That Come From? Not long ago, I noticed something new about myself, something that produced a profound shift in my thinking about who I am. Though this discovery heralded a new beginning of sorts for me, it didn't really occur at the beginning. Rather, it began in the middle, my stomach, to be precise. And the more I think of it, I'm not even sure stomach is the proper term anymore. The word just doesn't fit this thing I've discovered jutting from my midsection. Perhaps belly or gut would be more accurate. Once upon a time, my abdomen was a dense fortress of muscle. A proverbial six-pack of barbed wire napalm, ready to defend my internal organs from any foe foolhardy enough to assail them. I know it was. I saw it. I have pictures to prove it. Somehow, without my knowledge, it has been altered. What was once a source of pride is now a floppy mass of blubber and shame. I swear it happened overnight. One day I looked down and it was just there, like an Easter basket on your front porch on Easter morning, if the Easter basket was filled with lard instead of chocolate eggs. In fact, my gut appeared so suddenly, I thought I had fallen prey to one of those terrible surgical sneak attacks you hear about in urban legends. You know, the one where an unfortunate traveler is drugged and wakes up in a bathtub in some rundown hotel with both kidneys having been removed. Only in my case, the dastardly surgeon had performed an evil, clandestine stomach implant. And what's more, this thing, this new appendage, is incongruent with the rest of my body. I'm not a fat man. Yet I am undoubtedly packing around a fat man's gut. It looks as if I've developed kwashiorkor or swallowed a large tortoise. It's quite a sight, and I think if you were to see me walking down the street, you might declare me the skinniest fat man you've ever seen. At the moment of my discovery, I happened to be standing in front of a full-length mirror after getting out of the shower. Truly, upon seeing my reflection, the first thing that came to mind was the terrifying thought that I was adopted. Nobody in my family looks like that. Not only that, I was sure who my actual birth parents were. It was obvious I had sprung from an unnatural union between the Grinch and a female orangutan. The evidence was striking. The protuberant abdomen, surrounded by spindly simian extremities, told the tale. I decided Dr. Seuss was behind the whole thing. I began to wonder if he had felt sorry for the Grinch, stuck alone up there night after night on Mount Crumpet. Maybe he knew a lonely orangutan. After all, how many options can an orangutan have? And wouldn't they love to get away from Borneo, at least for a weekend? And if you're completely honest with yourself, I think you'll agree. The Grinch looked quite fetching, all dressed up in his Santa Claus suit. Remember how his belly peeked out from beneath that too short Santa coat, like an ill-tailored Who mutant halter top? Standing there in front of the mirror that fateful morning, staring at my belly, I could picture the whole thing. A blind date gone terribly wrong. A night full of cheap food, Jaeger shots, and regret. And here I am, left to deal with the aftermath. A good deal of time has passed since that day in front of the mirror, and I've had time to reflect. It seems to me that over the course of a lifetime, we paint in our minds a self-portrait. We develop an image of the person we think we are. If we're honest with ourselves, that self-image isn't always completely accurate. I mean, don't we all think we're just a little smarter, kinder, and more attractive than we actually are? What man doesn't think, if given the right training, he could have given Michael Jordan a run for his money? Where is the woman who doesn't believe, if not for incompetent hairdressers and makeup consultants, her hidden Angelina Jolie would be more obvious? Nevertheless, our tiny exaggerations in how we perceive ourselves typically don't matter too much. Who we think we are is most often based on who we actually are. And I would argue it's reasonably close to how everyone else sees us as well. This self-image is important in defining us and leads ultimately to how we present ourselves to others. When something comes along to change that self-image, something that alters how we look, for instance, our perception of ourselves can change. I would argue that such an occurrence is often a negative, unsettling experience, a new beginning that marks an unpleasant detour in the path a person had expected his or her life to follow. At least I know that's how it's been for me. As weeks passed and my new figure didn't change, I slowly came to grips with the fact that this is the new me. If I really wanted to return to the svelte, wasted days of my youth, I suppose I could start running marathons or become a vegetarian. But the fact of the matter is, I like sitting still and eating steaks too much. Bottom line, I have changed. Or at least my body has. And the more I thought about it, the more I became convinced that it's okay. I mean, doesn't everybody change? Sure, I wish I could keep the body I had at 18 for the rest of my life, don't we all? It's difficult to think of myself as an old guy with a flabby gut. But if I'm lucky, I'll eventually become an even older guy with gray hair and spectacles, and finally a stooped, bald-headed old man. We're all going to change, and entropy is going to make sure that the progression will be to increasingly greater states of disarray. We're all doomed to trundle ever downhill. Maybe we can take some solace in the fact that we'll all do it together. But I remain hopeful that this new beginning will mark not only a change in my appearance, but also a change in my attitude. Maybe I can learn to gracefully accept changes I'm not thrilled with. Maybe my growing belly will help me cope with growing old and all the challenges that presents. Maybe when I look down at my great and ever-growing girth, I will be less inclined to look down on others. Perhaps I'll be less judgmental and more forgiving of faults I perceive to be present in my neighbor. Maybe they can't help it, and even if they can, why in the world should that matter to me? I'm hopeful my wildly bouncing belly will remind me there are some things out of my control, and that I'd be better off to just relax and accept them, attempting to see the silver lining in every dark cloud. Lately, I've been trying that idea out on my new gut, and it's already paid off. For instance, I've learned elastic waist pants are really comfortable. I've discovered how surprisingly satisfying it can be to lean back and pat my belly after a good meal. And when sitting in a chair, I found I can rest small objects, like a TV remote or an Oreo, atop my gut, and it won't slide off. I wonder if you've heard the old saying, nothing is useless. Even a broken clock has the correct time twice a day. Well, it seems the same thing can be said for big bellies. I suppose in some ways it's handy. So I've come to grips with my new beginning. It's not been easy, but change rarely is. Life goes on, and so will I. I suppose things will largely proceed for me as they always have. I've concluded I'm probably not adopted, though the idea of scaling Mount Crumpet or traveling to Borneo to visit my birth parents sounds attractive. I have to admit it's likely not true, and either trip would be a waste of time. Though I do think I'll avoid the zoo, at least the area where the orangutans are housed. I'm probably being foolish, but the resemblance is uncanny, and it would be terribly awkward if I were to be recognized by my long-lost mother.